All right, everyone, get ready, because today we are taking a deep dive into the world of XPeng and electric vehicles.
Let go.
Probably seen the name, maybe you've even seen some of their cars on the road, but today we are going to answer the question, is XPeng just hype, or are they really the real deal?
Yeah. There's a lot of buzz around Xpeng, especially with their self-driving features.
And to get to the bottom of this, we've got a ton of analyst reports, market data, and even some insights from people close to the company.
So by the end of this deep dive, you'll be able to figure out for yourself if Xpeng is worth adding to your watch list.
So to kick things off, where do we even begin with a company like XPeng? I mean, they're doing a lot, right?
Yeah, maybe the best place to start is with what they actually do. They're building electric cars, but not just any electric car. They're building what they call smart EVs.
Ah, okay.
So think autonomous driving.
Okay, yeah.
Their XPLOT system, people are really excited about.
I've heard a lot about that.
It's getting great reviews from users. The driver assistance technology is really advanced.
So you're saying it's not just your typical electric vehicle.
Yeah, combine that with, they've got some really sleek, futuristic designs. I mean, it's pretty clear why they're turning heads.
Yeah, you see them on the street, they definitely look cool. They're not just some small operation either.
No.
I mean, they've got some popular models, the P7 Sport Sedan. I've seen that one around.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
And then the G9 flagship SUV.
Yeah, they sound like names that any car enthusiast would love.
For sure, yeah, absolutely. But here's the thing, right? They're not just making it in any market. They're making it in what's arguably the most important market, right?
The most important market in the world, I think you could say, yeah.
Yeah, I mean China.
China, yeah. It's the EV powerhouse.
The EV powerhouse of the world.
Exactly. In 2024 alone, they had 65% of all global passenger EV sales. That's huge.
That is a big number, wow.
Yeah. So for XPeng to be doing well in that market, taking a piece of that, that's a really good sign.
They must be doing something right. So they're making cool cars. They're doing it in a huge market. But what about the people behind the scenes? I mean, what about the leadership?
Yeah, every company that's successful has a leader with a vision, right?
Yeah.
So for XPeng, the guy is He Xiaopeng.
He Xiaopeng, okay.
Yeah, so he's got a pretty big reputation. He's known for being very hands-on, really involved. And there are some stories about him dealing with some pretty serious funding challenges back when the company was first starting out.
Really?
Yeah, so it kind of makes you think of him as a pretty scrappy leader, determined, not afraid to work hard.
Yeah, you kind of want that in a founder in a competitive industry like EVs.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if that filters down through the company as well.
Yeah, you're right. A good leader sets the tone for the entire company. And that's definitely true for XPeng. They're known for being very agile. They can adapt quickly, and they're really fast at innovating. Plus, they've got that MSCI ESG AAA rating. It's the highest rating out of any car company.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So not just focused on profits.
Right.
Actually doing good for the environment as well.
Exactly.
So that's got to look good to investors that are thinking about, sustainability and that kind of thing. But I think we gotta address the elephant in the room here.
Yeah.
The financials. What's really going on under the hood?
All right, time to look at the numbers. I'm not going to lie, they're not making a profit.
Not yet.
Not yet. But before you completely write them off, let's take a closer look. Okay, so their PE ratio is negative right now, but their revenue, it's going up steadily.
Okay.
And their gross profit margin, they hit a record high in Q3 2024.
That's really good to hear. But I mean, even though they're not in the black yet, it sounds like they're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
But aren't they burning through cash right now? How long can they keep that up before they have to show some real profits?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? It's a valid concern. But, XPeng, they're projected to be free cash flow positive in the second half of 2024.
Okay, wait, hold on. For those of us who are not financial experts, break that down for me. What does that mean, and why should we care?
Basically, it means they're going to be making enough cash to cover all their costs and still be able to invest in new technologies.
Okay.
That's a huge deal. It shows the company is really hitting its stride, and it could mean they're going to be a major player in the long run.
So it's like they're finally about to shift gears and become like a self-sustaining machine.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that definitely changes things a little bit.
Yeah.
But what are other people saying about this?
Well, the market's reaction has been kind of mixed, actually. And that's where things get really interesting. We're going to dive into that. We'll look at what people are saying about XPeng, what their potential is after a quick break.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a flash to uncover more about XPeng. And if you want to see all the sources we've used in this deep dive, make sure you check out the episode description.
All right, so we've talked about what XPeng does, who's running the show, and how their financials are looking. But you have to remember, no company exists in a vacuum, right?
Right.
We got to take into account what the market is saying, who's actually putting their money on the line.
Yeah, let's get into the whole market sentiment thing. Is Wall Street cheering them on, or are they saying pump the brakes?
Well, it's a little bit of a mixed bag, actually. Some people see XPeng as a high-growth stock with huge potential, especially when you look at their plan to expand into over 60 countries by 2025.
So they're not just aiming for China.
Yeah.
They want to be a global player.
Yeah, they want a piece of that global EV pie.
That's a bold move going up against players in Europe, maybe even the US. But is everyone convinced they could do it?
Not everyone. You've got some analysts like the folks over at Macquarie. They recently downgraded XPeng to neutral. Yep. Yeah, and their concern is profitability. Can they actually make money in this competitive market?
Yeah, that's a good point, because it seems like everyone's getting into the EV space right now.
It is getting crowded. You know, you've got Tesla doing their thing, and then traditional car companies like Ford are getting in on the action.
So a healthy dose of skepticism along with the hype. Which makes me wonder, what's the average analyst price target looking like?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. The average price target is actually lower than what XPeng is trading at right now.
Lower. Really, I wouldn't have expected that. What do you make of that?
It's a little strange. Sometimes the market gets a little ahead of itself. Sometimes analysts are a little too cautious.
Yeah.
It's all part of the puzzle we're trying to figure out here.
Right.
But to get a better idea, I think we got to look at who's actually holding XPeng stock. Who are these big players putting their money where their mouth is?
Okay, so let's talk ownership. Are we talking like big institutional investors, or is it mostly everyday people like you and me?
Well, you got some heavy hitters in there, some big institutions like Alibaba.
Wow, Alibaba.
Yeah, so that gives you some confidence that people who do this for a living, who know what they're doing, they're putting their money in XPeng.
Yeah, it's like they're giving it a stamp of approval. But what about the people actually running the company? Do they have some skin in the game?
They do. Insider ownership is high.
Okay.
Which means the founders and executives, they're invested in the company's success. Their success is tied to how well XPeng does.
So their interests are aligned with the shareholders.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got innovative technology, a really driven leadership team. Their financials seem promising, even though they're not profitable yet. The market sentiment's kind of mixed, but they have some really big names backing them. But let's be real, no investment is a sure thing. What are some of the risks that we should be thinking about before we, jump on the XPeng bandwagon?
Well, I think this is where we got to break out the good old SWOT analysis.
Yeah.
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
The classic SWOT. Okay.
Classic for a reason. It really helps you see the big picture.
Yeah. All right, let's break down XPeng's SWOT analysis. What are some of the big things our listeners should know?
Well, let's start with the good stuff. One of their biggest strengths is their commitment to innovation, and it's paying off. They've had some really successful product launches recently, especially with their Mona sub-brand.
Mona, okay.
Yeah, they just hit 2 months in a row with sales over 10,000 units.
Wow, 10,000 units each month. That's pretty impressive. What's driving that? Is it appealing to like a specific type of buyer?
That's a good question. The Mona, it's their entry-level model, so the price is very competitive.
Okay.
Makes it accessible to a lot of people, which is a smart move in a market like China. People are very price conscious.
Right.
Another strength is their partnership with Volkswagen.
Oh, wow, Volkswagen.
Yeah. I mean, to get a company like that, a global giant, to team up with you, that's a big win.
Yeah, huge. All right, so those are some definite wins in the strength column. But what about the weaknesses? What are some things that potential investors should be wary of with XPeng?
Well, the most obvious one is that they're not profitable yet.
Right.
Although we've talked about how they're projected to be free cash flow positive soon. But another concern is that they're really relying on those lower priced models to get those sales numbers.
So they're winning on volume, but it could be hurting their profit margins.
Right.
Is that something they can keep doing long term?
That's a really good question. They're going to have to find a way to balance affordability with profitability.
Right.
And that's tough, especially in a market that's as competitive as this one.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we've got strengths, we've got weaknesses. What about opportunities? What are some areas where XPeng could really take off?
Well, even though the Chinese EV market is already huge, it's still got room to grow. And then there's their global expansion. If they can pull that off successfully, it could be a game changer. Plus, you got to remember, they're not just a car company, they're a tech company too.
That's a good point. What kind of tech opportunities are we talking about?
Well, think about their XPEV system. They could license that tech to other manufacturers, or they could develop new ways to make money from software and services related to self-driving cars.
So they're thinking long term. They're not just betting on selling cars. They're betting on the future of how we get around.
Exactly.
But even with all those opportunities, are there any threats that could really throw a wrench in their plans?
Oh, yeah. The competition is fierce out there. You've got Tesla pushing the limits, the traditional car companies are upping their EV game, and then there's a bunch of new players coming onto the scene.
So it's a real battle royale.
It is. And then you have to think about market saturation in China. At some point, all that growth is going to slow down. It's inevitable. And don't forget about regulations, especially all those EV subsidies. Those have really helped drive sales, but they could change.
Yeah, that's a lot to keep track of. It sounds like they're going to have to juggle a lot of things, competing with all those other companies, making sure they can actually make a profit. So what's the bottom line? Is XPeng worth all the hype?
That's the million-dollar question. And honestly, it depends.
There's never a simple answer, is it?
It rarely is with investments.
Okay.
XPeng has a lot going for it. You've got cutting-edge technology, strong leadership, a market that's growing like crazy, and the possibility of expanding globally.
Right. But then there are those challenges, the competition,
Yeah.
the dependence on the Chinese market. They still got to prove they can actually make money.
Yeah.
And then there are the risks that come with growing that fast.
Exactly. So anyone who's thinking about investing in XPeng, you really got to weigh the potential rewards against those potential risks. Do your research, look at their financials, and think about whether XPeng fits your investment goals and how much risk you're comfortable with.
And remember, even though AI analysis can be really powerful, it's just a starting point.
Right.
You have to use your own judgment and intuition too.
Absolutely.
And speaking of your thoughts, we want to hear from you. What are your takeaways from this deep dive? What questions do you still have about XPeng?
Head over to the comments and tell us what you think.
Yeah, we always love hearing from you guys and learning from our listeners.
And if you want to explore more investment opportunities and really stay ahead of the game, make sure you subscribe to the Stock Analytics AI YouTube channel.
We've got tons of videos breaking down all the latest trends and companies that are shaping the future of investing. We're talking EVs, artificial intelligence, the metaverse, all that good stuff.
Keep learning, keep exploring, and remember, the best investment is always in your own knowledge.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into XPeng.